It's an SEC Sunday, so we are looking at the top tiers of quarterbacks in the Southeastern Conference as we head into the 2025 season. And I have what is maybe not your average thought process on how to rank these quarterbacks. Now, I didn't go by, a 1 through 16 ranking of who's the best because there are a lot of question marks at QB throughout the conference. And so I don't think that you can even really make that determination other than I don't think Zach Calzada is going to be very good at Kentucky because I don't think Kentucky is going to be very good. Well, that's not really fair to him. So I put him into tiers. I put him into the 1 through 4 different tiers. And they're not equal, by the way. There aren't 4 in every tier. I have some mismatch. But in the top 2 tiers, I don't think there's a whole lot of argument on what or how, maybe not what these, but how these tiers shake out. If you look at the top 2 tiers of this conference, I think it's clear that the top tier includes LSU quarterback Garrett Nussmeier, Texas quarterback Arch Manning, South Carolina's Lenora Sellers, and Florida's DJ Lagway. I don't think that you would get too much argument from even the most ardent SEC supporters or even SEC coaches who would tell you, I don't think that they would have too much consternation with that list. I think that you would probably be told, if you were to inject truth serum into the 16 head coaches, come to a consensus on who the 4 best quarterbacks in the conference are, that it's going to look a lot like that list. Now, there might be somebody who would say, I would take Arch Manning out, put Marcel Reed in. I would take Garrett Nussmeier out, put in Taylon Green. I think you could have some argument there or some conversation there. But I'm here to tell you that that's the consensus of these are the best quarterbacks in the conference. And whether that's a 1 through 4 ranking or not, that is up for debate. Because I think that there's a really strong chance, and I've said this before, and I'll say it again and again, I think there's a really strong chance that Garrett Nussmeier is the number 1 overall pick in the 2026 NFL draft. And if he's not, I think that there are some LSU fans who are going to have to really look at whether Brian Kelly is the guy to lead their program going forward, because Garrett Nussmeier's got all the physical tools to be either the number 1 overall pick in the NFL draft or to be the best quarterback in college football, potentially. And if he doesn't get there, I think that you have to question whether it's Garrett Nussmeier or whether it's Brian Kelly that is the issue. And I don't know that Brian Kelly's going to like that conversation. But I don't know that that's a 1 through 4. I think I think there's a lot of expectations for Lenora Sellers going into 2025. And to me, I'm always kind of gun shy about this because it's the same thing as, in my view, it's the same thing as there every year in fantasy football drafts. There was a running back who the year before was kind of flying under the radar, had a big year, and everybody's like, oh shit, that needs to be the first overall pick in the fantasy football draft. And then inevitably, that guy goes and has just a horrible year or gets injured, and everybody goes, oh my God, I wasted the first overall pick with Jonathan Taylor. So I'm hesitant on Lenora Sellers. He had a really good season, and it certainly feels as if South Carolina's kind of whole hopes and dreams rest with Lenora Sellers being really good. And that's a lot for somebody to carry. So I don't know that I would put him number 2. I'm high on Arch Manning. I've been an ardent Arch Manning supporter. I buck the idea that if his last name was Jones, that he would never even be at Texas, blah, blah, blah. I think you're going to see a really strong season from Arch Manning. And DJ Lagway had a really great freshman campaign. And outside of there being some question marks at receiver for Florida coming into the season, I still think that he can play at a high enough level to earn a spot to stay in the top tier. The second tier, I think there are good quarterbacks here. I have told you, I think John Mateer is the right fit for Oklahoma at the right time. Whether he is good enough to drag their ass from a 6-6 season to a 9-3, 10-2 season remains to be seen. But I like John Mateer a lot. Diego Pavia led Vanderbilt to the biggest upset in the sport last year. And I've always really liked Diego Pavia because he is not the biggest guy. He's not the fastest guy. He's not the strongest guy. He doesn't have the best arm. He doesn't make the best decisions. And yet somehow he just figures it out and just plays football good. And I think that deserves to be celebrated. When you play football good, regardless of team expectations, regardless of what surrounds you, I don't care. Diego Pavia, good quarterback. Taylon Green is a guy, I think, that if he played for a borderline playoff contender, that if he played for somebody that was on the cusp of being a contender or on the cusp of being a conference championship game / national championship caliber team, I would put money on Taylon Green to win the Heisman Trophy because he has that skill set. Threw for 3,400 yards last year, rushed for another 600. In my estimation, that's only going to get better this coming season. I have somewhat high hopes for Taylon Green, and yet I don't have a whole lot of high hopes for Arkansas. I just don't think they're going to be especially great. And I don't know that he is of that almost like Lamar Jackson caliber player where despite your team's lack of success, it's undeniable how important you have been to the team. Therefore, you're the Heisman Trophy winner. But Taylon Green has Heisman Trophy winning caliber attributes. And I think you could maybe argue that he should be the top quarterback in this tier and isn't. Marcel Reed is in kind of that similar ilk of if Texas A&M is going to be a playoff contender, if they're going to be in the hunt for the SEC, and I think that's the expectation in College Station, it's going to be due to Marcel Reed's success rather than in spite of Marcel Reed. But he's got another interesting skill set that I think warrants him being in the second tier. If I was to rank these 1 through 4 in tier number 2, I think I'd put Taylon Green 1, John Mateer 2, Marcel Reed 3, Diego Pavia 4. That's my read on it. Would love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. Let's have that conversation. Then we turn it over to the third tier and the fourth tier. And I think there are going to be some people in some fan bases who do not like the positioning in the third tier and the fourth tier. But bear with me. In the third tier, I have Jackson Arnold at Auburn, Zach Calzada at Kentucky, and Tennessee quarterback Joey Aguilar. And I know that when you look at the left side of the screen and there's a third tier of Jackson Arnold, Zach Calzada, and Joey Aguilar, are they better than guys like Gunnar Stockton and Ty Simpson? No. I think Jackson Arnold might be. Jackson Arnold, to me, gets on the to me, in my brain, the third tier and the fourth tier are separated by. Third tiers are transfers who have played a little bit. Third tier guys have had at least some on-field experience / success, and Texas A&M fans may question Zach Calzada's success. And OU fans might think Jackson Arnold doesn't deserve to be, and he had some success. They've shown at least flashes. Joey Aguilar more so at Appalachian State than UCLA. Basically, Tennessee completed a Nico Iamaleava for Joey Aguilar trade. I don't know if that's a fantastic trade. It'll play itself out. But I also think Nico Iamaleava, in my viewpoint, would have been a second-tier quarterback rather than a first-tier quarterback because I think that he is not on the same level as a DJ Lagway, Garrett Nussmeier, Lenore Sellers, etc., and is more on the level of Diego Pavia, John Mateer, etc. He could have made a jump and had some explosive growth to be the first-tier quarterback, but it doesn't matter because he's not in the SEC anymore. My justification for putting Jackson Arnold, Zach Calzada, and Joey Aguilar in the third tier is that they have had some success. At least you've seen something from them to warrant, and I think you could probably argue that Jackson Arnold did not have a great time at Oklahoma and that he maybe should deserve to be in the second tier. I would listen to that conversation if you're an Auburn fan and you believe Jackson Arnold should be in the second tier. If you believe he belongs in the first tier, you're on crack cocaine and need to consult medical help because he's not in the first tier. He can play himself into that first tier over the course of his college career. But as it sits right now in the middle of June, going into the 2025 season, to argue that Jackson Arnold is a top-tier quarterback is ridiculous. I also think it would be ridiculous to label him a fourth-tier quarterback. He's not a bottom-tier quarterback. He's in the middle two, and I will put him in the third because due to the expectations at Oklahoma that he did not hit, I think you have to put him in the third tier. Zach Calzada and Joey Aguilar might be, at the end of the season, the 12th, 13th, 14th, 15th, 16th best quarterbacks in the SEC. But at least they've done something. And that brings us to the fourth tier. Ty Simpson hasn't done a lot at Alabama. Gunnar Stockton hasn't done anything at Georgia. Bo Pribula left Penn State because he didn't want to sit behind Drew Aller anymore. And I've been on the record of I don't see what everybody thinks is so great about Drew Aller. Yes, when Drew Aller gets to stand in the pocket like a statue, he's fantastic. And when he literally has to leave the spot, he's horrible. Congratulations. That's true for damn near every average quarterback. And Bo Pribula couldn't beat that out. And then I know there's a lot of talk about Austin Simmons is going to impress at Ole Miss, and I think maybe that has more to do with Lane Kiffin being his coach than the ability of Austin Simmons. That's not to say that Austin Simmons he could have all the talent in the world, but I think that the immediate reaction from people is Austin Simmons is going to be successful because he is at Ole Miss, not because he has the physical tools, capabilities, and attributes to be a really successful and highly capable Division I quarterback. I think those are two different conversations, and until he plays at a level that everybody goes like, oh, hell, I didn't see that coming, I think it's hard to put him as – I've seen people rank him as high as like the sixth best quarterback in the conference, and I think that is scouting the uniform and the helmet and the dude wearing the headset on the sidelines more than the player. And that's not to take away from Austin Simmons because obviously he's going to have a little bit of talent if you're going to be the starting quarterback in the SEC in 2025. All of these guys have the ability to play at a really high level, conceivably. Is that Calzada? I don't know. But all these guys have that ability somewhere in them. And there is a marriage there that needs to happen between coach and quarterback to be uber successful. But I just get the feeling that the idea that it's an inevitability that he's going to be really successful because Lane Kiffin is his coach is a really high compliment to Lane Kiffin, but it's not necessarily a super high compliment to Austin Simmons. And so I think it's maybe a bit premature. Those guys that I have in that fourth tier of you haven't shown me anything, and so I don't know where to place you. You can say that, you know, Gunnar Stockton had a chance to perform really well in his limited time. And Austin Simmons, in his college career, he's thrown for 2 touchdowns. He went 1 for 1 in the bowl game against Duke. Like, okay, great. I'm not going to put a bunch of stock into that when I've seen what the body of work looks like for somebody like Joey Aguilar at Tennessee. Is that ceiling really high? No, it's not. But at least I have something to go off of, rather than just, well, this kid was really good in high school. Yeah, there's a lot that goes into being really good in the SEC too. And I just can't put anybody that hasn't done a whole lot much higher than that fourth tier. Now, maybe I'm crazy. If you think so, let me know in the comments below. Would love to hear your thought processes, who you think deserves to be in the top tier of SEC quarterbacks, and who did I misplace? Let me know in those comments below. That'll do it for today's episode of the Daily Huddle. I appreciate you making us a part of your day, however it is, wherever it is you're doing so. If you're watching on YouTube, hit the subscribe button. Make sure you're getting all the great college football content we're pumping out. If you're listening on the podcast feed, drop a 5-star review. It goes a long way in helping out the channel. I'll see you tomorrow for another episode of the Daily Huddle.